Let us start with a framework which is widely used for business strategy. Porter's 5 forces. This model is used to analyze how attractive is an industry. This model gives us an idea of what are the factors that can affect the profitability in this industry. Basis that, business can take a call on whether to enter this industry or not. So the 5 forces of Porter 5 forces are: the first one is industry rivalry. Here we need to see how many competitors exist. If more number of competitors are present, there will be high number of similar products or services available for customer. So the customer has the power to choose and they can easily shift in case there is a better offering elsewhere or if a lower price is available. If the competition is low, then the business can charge a premium to the customer, hence increasing the profitability. We can look at a small example of airline industry. The rivalry within the airline industry is very high. Since the customers can easily switch from one company to another depending on whoever is offering a cheaper ticket price. The next force is threat to new entrants. We need to check the barriers of entry. If the industry is profitable, then many businesses would want to enter this industry. This will lead to many products being offered and hence the profitability decreases. However, if there is a barrier of entry, which means it is difficult to enter that industry, then the number of entrants will not be very high. Example, in pharma industry, research and development needs to be done to launch new medicines. This industry hence has very high barrier of entry, which restricts the number of businesses entering into this industry. Hence, this industry has high profitability. The next force is power of suppliers. In this, we see how much power does the supplier has over the cost of raw materials. If there is a limited number of suppliers, then they will dictate the price of the raw materials and the supplies which are taken as an input in a business. And the business cannot procure from any other supplier or they cannot procure any alternative product. So, to be in a profitable industry, suppliers should have limited power. Let us take an example of airline industry. Here the suppliers are the plane manufacturers like Boeing or Airbus. The power of supplier here is very high because the number of suppliers is very less. Also in this industry, safety is of utmost importance. Hence, it is necessary that the suppliers should be of high quality. Therefore, in an airline industry, suppliers like Boeing has a very high bargaining power and they dictate the price of the manufacturing of plane and the business do not have much say over it. The next force is power of buyers. In this, we need to see what is the power of buyer. If number of buyers are low, then they will dictate the prices. So ideally, customer base should be large and varied so as to have minimum power to the buyers. So let us take a small example. In the pharma industry, the buying power of the buyer is low. Here, the buyer is the customers who are buying the medicines. Suppose for a illness, a buyer needs to buy a medicine and it is available with very few company, because for every new product that is developed, the business is given patent and nobody else has the right to manufacture this medicine. So if a buyer requires to buy a medicine, then they have to buy it and they do not have much bargaining power. A recent example would be the availability of remdesivir, which was a life-saving drug for COVID-19. There was shortage of the drug in the market and the buyer had little to no bargain power. There was a requirement of the drug and the buyers were forced to buy it at whatever price at which it was available. And they had little to no alternative available for them. In such industries where the bargaining power of buyers is low, the profitability is higher because the business dictates the price of the product. In the same way, if the buyer has a higher bargaining power, in that case, it's the buyers who dictate the price in the market and the business becomes more competitive and hence they reduce their profitability. The next force is threat of substitutes. Substitute goods and services are those that can be used in case the product of the business is not available. Companies that produce goods or services that has no similar substitutes will have more power to increase and control the price. In the last example that we have seen of pharma industry, let us look at it again. In this, the need of customer was to get the medicine and there is a lack of alternative here. A customer needs a medicine to heal and there is no other substitute other than medicine which will help to heal. Hence, there is no direct substitute present. Lack of substitutes let businesses dictate what is the price, thus increasing the profitability. By looking at each of these competitive forces, we can gauge overall attractiveness of the industry. It also tells us about the factors that is going to affect the profitability in that particular industry. This helps make a decision for the business on whether or not to enter into an industry. So this model is used to see how attractive should an industry be for entering or not. So if you are planning to enter into a new industry, you need to use Porter's 5 forces to understand whether it will be profitable or not. Let us look at the 5 points again. The first one is industry rivalry. In industry rivalry, the number of competitors should be less to have a favorable profitability. The next point was threat of new entrants. A favorable outcome will be to have high barrier of entry so that the market is not flooded with a lot of competitors. The next point was the power of suppliers. Here the power of suppliers should be low, otherwise the business will be heavily dependent on the suppliers and they will be dictating the cost of the raw materials used. The next point was the bargaining power of buyers. A favorable outcome would be low bargaining power of the buyers so that the buyers do not dictate on the price to be paid. And the last point was threat of substitutes. There should not be any direct substitute. Otherwise, if your product is not available or if it is not affordable, buyers may buy the substitute instead of the company's product. Once you analyze an industry using these forces, you will be able to take a strategic decision on whether to enter the market or not.